Hey, welcome to episode 24 of the Cafe Genius Empresarios audio program. Today is August 11th, 2023. Happy Friday. Today, another solo episode by me, your host, Dan Hugo. Hey, who doesn't like talking to themselves, right? And you get to listen in. So my voice is affected by my hanging out last night on the 10th of August. The Best of Vegas 2023 celebration put on by the Las Vegas Weekly Greenspun publication. This is not sponsored, but I'm just pointing it out. Getting outside, visiting the Strip, which is a rare occurrence lately. And so it was very loud, and so my voice is affected. And I still have my allergies. So there you go. If I sound different, that's the thing. Today's episode is the problem as LinkedIn. I can easily say that the problem is LinkedIn, but it's LinkedIn is a prototype. So let us begin. Today is not only the day after the Best of Vegas celebration at Zouk, the Resorts World, but it is my 20-year anniversary since signing up with the LinkedIn platform. Yes, this day, August 11, 2003, I joined this weird website which purported to be a way to connect with colleagues. And this was in the era of classmates.com and similar. And I figured, by 2003, I was living in Phoenix, actually. I had just left Silicon Valley. 9/11 had happened. Pardon me. And it was interesting and difficult to stay in touch or keep in touch or get back in touch with colleagues after I had moved. And given the state of the world, as it happens, I moved just before 9/11. I finished moving from Silicon Valley to Phoenix, Arizona, where I had grown up. I didn't just spin a spinner and pick Phoenix. And so I moved back to give Phoenix a go. Phoenix seemed to have a lot of stuff going on in the entrepreneurial space. So I figured, I will move to Vegas. I will move to Phoenix, and I will see what comes of it after the sort of rise and fall of Silicon Valley. And so, of course, things got worse in September. It's funny that I said Vegas there. I moved to Vegas after a house fire to see what would happen. I left Silicon Valley, and here I am. So, I think that Las Vegas has become too dependent on LinkedIn explicitly. And this is something that has been said by people at the city and by everyone I know here. And while it is not the only way people communicate, it has inserted itself far too deeply into the communication process. And it and other third-party platforms have wildly different motivation, diametrically opposed to the desire of individuals to communicate and to share their business and professional stories. All too often turning into simple advertisements or pontifications, the infamous short paragraph, multi-paragraph stories of LinkedIn about emotional appeal and so on. So let's get to it. So as LinkedIn, as I said, real communication has become a matter of getting likes and views on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, no less true on LinkedIn, which will provide stats and will send you notifications at this point to help you get more attention, to get more engagement, to get more, participation. And it's somewhat disingenuous in my opinion. So it's the largest social media platform, LinkedIn, and for business and professionals, certainly. And it has become the way that so many people conduct a job search, conduct a candidate search, and get the word out about their business. These rapidly become the primary motivation. It's, in my opinion, not so much about interaction as much as announcement. I think the platform suffers from this direction as a resource, and the users suffer as the product, of course. You can pay for pro or whatever they call it on LinkedIn, but I'm sure the vast majority of us just use it for what it was. And so we enjoy, I think it's every third post in the news feed is an ad or promoted posting. And as it happens, the algorithm at LinkedIn is only becoming more and more pervasive and in my opinion, limiting. So city scale communication and ecosystem development is not best conducted on LinkedIn. There, I said it. So yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know if many people share it, but well, it is what it is. I have come across more and more people that don't use LinkedIn or will commiserate. Oh, I hate LinkedIn. I don't like using LinkedIn. It has become, though, the way to communicate. I have done a previous podcast episode on Trust But Verify, where LinkedIn can be used to conduct nefarious activities that can sometimes, in that case, not always, but in that case, resulted in, well, luckily, specifically, it resulted in the person leaving town, ultimately arrested and convicted for sexual assault of a minor. So that is not a LinkedIn problem, but it can start with LinkedIn, which imparts a certain degree of credibility through the building of network connections between people who may not actually know each other. So, but I'm going off the rails there. I've already expressed that opinion previously. This is about the use of social media, LinkedIn in particular, but in general, to facilitate communications in the assumption that these replace one-on-one or direct, whether it's email, whether it's, who knows if this is even possible anymore, in-person talking, face-to-face, as they say, or maybe online if you want to go chatting and such. But when you are ruled by an algorithm, the goal is to get the likes and obviously conversions. If you're trying to sell a product, the likes and views and shares and whatnot are secondary. They may help you tune your algorithm. But if you're trying to sell something, obviously it's your conversion rate, not the likes. But the likes have become the goal for too many, I think. And engagement rules. And I think we'll get to that next. The Enpoopification is real. That's not the real expression. The real expression, I'm trying to keep it clean. It is, it rhymes with hitification, but there's an S in there. It's a term coined by Cory Doctorow in 2022. I've placed a link to the Wikipedia page for Cory. He is prolific. He appears in many places, writing many words. So the Wikipedia page is a convenient starting point. But they do call out his coining of this term. It's apropos. It's about public platforms, especially social media platforms, devolving into profit-driven antics. I'm summarizing. This is not his actual. You can read a lot more about his opinions on these things. Even a lot of choice words about the Twitter to X and so on. It's profit-driven antics that are ultimately unhealthy for their users in favor of their shareholders or other benefactors. So again, that's my summary, not a quote. So basically, the journey is that when you start a new platform, let's create a virtual business card. People in Silicon Valley are changing jobs every 20 minutes. Make it easier for them to connect. And that was indeed a high value feature. That's why I joined. I used to tell people the joke, like, "Oh, where are you working today?" During the .com era, it was very easy to get jobs. It was very easy to move around. So everybody did. The notion of job hopping was sort of par for the course. So it was a useful tool. But once you get people hooked on it, there's a lag between the realization and the action. So as they moved more towards profit and Microsoft's involvement didn't help, they become they're beholden to their shareholders and to their other benefactors, as I said, and they have to generate revenue and satisfy those requirements. And so the user becomes the product, of course, as was always the case, but more so. And today we have the introduction of AI, very, very creepy emails as though they're sent from a person trapped in a box, perhaps. The subject lines are things like, I still want to connect. I mean, I guess that sounds okay, except that it sounds like the person who wants to connect on LinkedIn is sending you an email. That is not at all the case. And I don't know if people realize that all the time. So I get an email, I still want to connect, or, hey, I hope we can. And these are computer generated, and they're attempting to be friendly, I suppose, or more human. I think it's a miss. But so LinkedIn has leaned completely into algorithms. And by way of testing this, I stopped tagging people in my own posts. Of course, you get no engagement at that point. And so this is their game. It's their platform. It's their rules. So, but it has become so reflexive to tag people in posts. Now, this is not a mention. For example, if somebody wants to say, hey, congratulations, Jason LeDuc, for launching your new rebranding of your consultancy and your new podcast. So I might tag Jason as a mention, and that helps with the algorithm, and it helps people that know Jason would see it and all that. Okay, there is some utility there. However, when you see posts they end with tagging of 50 people, if you don't do that, and if you don't put 5 hashtags, and if you don't have an image, and if you have a link off the site, and all these other wacko rules, the length of the post, how often you post, then your posts are downgraded. They're not seen by as many people. Now, the casual user does not join LinkedIn or does not participate in LinkedIn as a consumer. I may not be seeing the things I want to see here on LinkedIn because the original posters have not followed the rules. So this is not always intuitive. An honest content creator or business person or job seeker may post on LinkedIn, not having much of a network in place, and say, I'm looking for a job. They may post in a group or on a page. They may make a comment. And then what? The algorithm may or may not favor them, and no one might see that. When I post this podcast episode link on the Cafe Genius LinkedIn page, I don't tag people anymore. Do people even see it? Have no idea. More likely, people will find the podcast via any existing podcast subscriptions, or if other people share it. At least sharing is organic. The tagging of people is more mechanical, more algorithmic. But if Jason, for example, were to hear this podcast and decide he wants to share it amongst his audience in one way or another, then that is it's a testimonial. Essentially, this is a tried and true method of getting the word out, is from people who know other people, and they want to share that information with them. Hey, check out this podcast episode. Hey, check out this business. Hey, check out this restaurant, and so on. So there's nothing new here. But unfortunately, LinkedIn has turned this into a crank that must be turned in a certain way. Otherwise, nobody will see your posts. And case in point, again, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I am the managing director, has a page on LinkedIn. We have something like 692, I think, followers, something like that. And again, there I don't tag people when I post things on there. So if I don't tag people, 692 people follow it. How many of those people will see anything I posted there? They presumably followed that page. And by the way, Cafe Genius has, I think, 149. I really haven't focused on connecting that. Cafe Genius is not a real company. It's a project as part of my own company. So I'm not really selling anything. But Innovate for Vegas is an actual, charitable effort. We're trying to get local innovators to become civic volunteers and work on open source projects to make our smart city smarter. All good things. So we're not selling a product so much, but we do have beneficial outcomes on the roadmap, and that involves engaging with people. So the outreach, when we first formed, and when we first started doing this in March, I think it was 2022, we formed in June. So reaching out to people in the maker and hackathon and smart city and related services, verticals made sense. And so the 692-ish connections that we have on LinkedIn with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation page seem to make sense. But again, if I don't tag people, if there are no tags, if there are not the right number of hashtags, if I'm linking to an external event page for, say, the International Space Apps Challenge, the post may or may not be seen by people, and certainly doesn't get engagement because you have to tag people. So I'm going in circles at this point, yes, because this has become a problem in an insular community. And this was identified in the ecosystem report from Mo Collins, which we had another podcast about that, episode 10 on this very channel. Find it where you find this podcast. So insular communities, we already have an insular community problem in the greater Vegas entrepreneurial ecosystem. People don't talk to each other. So if you only find out about things, if you tag people that you may not be connected to, and if they don't take the time to retag or to reshare and all this, you place the onus on too many people to get the word out, which I think allows good ideas and good efforts to languish, to flounder, to die, simply because of a lack of awareness, because that awareness is hinged. Is that a word? It's hinged too tightly on the notion that LinkedIn is the one true way to share information. And this is also true of YouTube. YouTube has become sort of the go-to platform for video sharing, for content creators to publish their content there, make money. And they have a similar problem. Every time there's an algorithm change, every time there's a policy change on which words they can say or what their content can look like, where they can place ads, where they can, ad reads and so on. They have to chase those policies. LinkedIn, you have to chase the algorithm. You must follow the rules of the platform. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Or in the case if you're making money, you're wasting your time and not making money. So the adpocalypse of YouTube famously pulled the rug on so many people. LinkedIn could, at any time, and this is not meant to be a conspiracy podcast. It's just a reality check. LinkedIn at any time could change their algorithm so that if you link too often to outside resources, if you go off the LinkedIn platform too often, they may decide that your posts get unboosted, they get downgraded, they get so that they will receive less traffic. They prefer, and I believe this is already true, the LinkedIn algorithm prefers local content. So link in comments has resulted, right? So rather than putting a link in the article or post, you put the link in the comments, therefore it doesn't count against your posting. Isn't that ridiculous? It's and Google is no better with their SEO rules and we want you to do this or that, otherwise you won't get ranked as highly in the SERPs. So throw in some AI and now you have all kinds of rules and all kinds of output that is built to satisfy those rules and so on. So are we losing out? I would posit yes. Why are we losing out? Well, here in Las Vegas, we have an entire entrepreneurial ecosystem that is new. It's certainly novel. It's nascent, in some cases aspirational. So while there are certainly startups here, there are startups of all flavors. There is a huge culinary union, very powerful. Restaurants, very powerful. The hospitality industry, tourism, gaming, entertainment in general, the list goes on. So Las Vegas, and there are startup opportunities, one-person businesses, whether you're a limousine company or maybe you're a Lyft driver, maybe you are a photographer, maybe you're a DJ, maybe you're a musician, and so on. There's a list of things that people do to take advantage of the 40 million people a year coming here and so on. So there's all manner of opportunity. And some of those opportunities will be in the tech space. Will Las Vegas or the greater Vegas ecosystem become the next Silicon Valley? No. But as I often tell people lately, Silicon Valley has gambling. Probably didn't know that. The Bay 101 card house, for example, there's legalized gambling in various forms. It's not quite the Strip. But the fact is, Silicon Valley has gambling. It is not the main focus of Silicon Valley. I would argue even Silicon Valley is not the modern focus of Silicon Valley. But the historical emergence of the tech hub, especially focused quite literally on silicon, since the late 40s into the early 90s, and then it sort of switched very quickly to laptops and coffee shops and world-ending software development, world-breaking certainly. But the desire to apply all these various software tools to change things in Silicon Valley has been its undoing. Who knows? But also as well, making tech the center of your economic and cultural revolution, not necessarily a great thing if left to its own devices, literally. So all that said, yes, Las Vegas will have some sort of technical component of its ecosystem. There's no reason not to. If you want to test a nuclear weapon, if you want to interact with aliens, all kinds of stuff going on. So, but the problem is, do we consider the platforms like LinkedIn or YouTube or similar, and the methods of Silicon Valley to be the only true ways to communicate and to build and to flourish? If past is prologue, I would say maybe not. So change is difficult. What do we do? What should we do? What could we do? Clearly, I'm only one person, so I can't wave a magic wand, or would that there was a command line I could type RM-RF LinkedIn. But taking back communication, I think, is important. I personally am today refusing LinkedIn DMs moving forward. I have an email address that I've had since 1996. I have my Gmail address that I use to register and continue to use as the primary sort of generic contact on LinkedIn. I was part of the beta program for Gmail, which so many other people were. So I've had the same email address since, was it 2003? It was right when it was around the same time. So I've had the same email address. There's no reason you cannot use it. Send me email. Why am I getting direct messages? Direct messages on LinkedIn seem like an interesting, convenient idea. They're convenient for introductions. You can link directly to LinkedIn profiles and so on. That convenience comes at a cost. You cannot add discussion members, which has some utility sometimes, but not if you're not expecting it. So if you're having an ongoing conversation thread and you'd like to add someone to the conversation, they make it intensely difficult to do that. I don't care for it. So you have handed your communication over to a third party that has a profit motive, not a communication motive. And the same is true of Google with Gmail, of course. In a perfect world, we would all run our own SMTP servers on open ports in our IPv6 addressed fiber optic home network connections someday. But yeah, fewer third parties with their own motives, with agenda that are not compatible with communication in all cases, is my own personal goal. So, because once this profit-driven block is placed in the middle, as in man-in-the-middle attack, they have too much say, they have too much control in how people communicate. And the same is true when you post. If you have a personal blog, if Jason had, JasonLeducBlog.com or something, he has his website for Jason Leduc Consulting. Why am I picking on Jason? I don't know. Jason's a fairly well-known solo entrepreneur here in the Greater Vegas area. He's an Air Force veteran, good guy. If he had a blog and he would make his, he has, like I said, he has a website for his consultancy also. But he could blog all day. He could write anything he wants. And if I was to follow his blog with an RSS feed reader, and I'll get to that in another episode, probably on the Let's Innovate for Vegas channel, RSS needs to go, or it needs to fade even more to the background and be replaced by, in my view, schema.org, human readable, but machine annotated content. But anyway, you can follow his blog. And if you follow his blog and you choose to read it, there is no algorithm. There's nothing deciding that, oh, you're probably not interested in what Jason had to say because he didn't tag enough people. You would read it. Mastodon, similar. If you like Twitter, how about if you just get to decide what you want to look at? And so I'm sort of a fan of that. Some will say that makes your feed boring because you have to do too much work. Boo and who. You should be interested in what you're reading, not have it handed to you. I think there are too many problems that come from that, my opinion. But there's simply too much in the way between what you really want to know and what you are allowed to be exposed to because of algorithms. Again, my opinion. Until somebody new comes along and says, hey, here's a new way of doing things. It's less bad. It's less Twitter. It's less Facebook, etc. And then the whole cycle starts over because they draw us in with features and answering our, oh, here's a problem that you have and here's our solution and it's free. And then you join and you feed their journey along this cycle pathway that has repeated itself time and time again. So how do we break the cycle? So I mentioned Innovate for Vegas. We have a couple of projects that we're working on. Part of it is involving more people in the tools that they use. I'm a strong supporter of the notions of open source software development, community-driven efforts. See a problem, identify it, propose a solution, and have people who are interested in it work on it in an open setting. So rather than having secret algorithms and boost and buck lists for political and financial interests, just let people consume what they want in a way that is beneficial to them. And monetizing it, that is certainly a problem, but there are ways to do that are not so predatory against users for the sake of profit and funding flowing to people who really honestly don't care what you are consuming. So Federation is one thing. So that's Mastodon, that's ActivityPub, that is open protocol, sharing information across them, getting away from silos, getting away from insulation. I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, by the way. The greater Vegas area suffers from insular community-itis. So we have communities of people here who are doing great things, and you don't know about them. Why? Because they don't reach across the aisle, so to speak. They don't always. I proposed a community communities plural communities summit to get the people leading these various community efforts to meet, to find out about each other as a starting point. I got no interest. Why? How do you advertise something like that? There's no central. I don't want to say a central calendar. I've said that before, and that's obviously that's the wrong direction. But a way to find out what's going on and who's doing what in we used to call it a well-known location, right? So if we can have calendars that are federated, so not centralized, federated so that the calendars can share information amongst themselves, which already exists, by the way, CalDave, iCalendar streams. So if you have servers that you can publish your events to and they share and sync each other, synchronize with each other so that there's a general, at the end, it is sort of a centralized calendar. So there are multiple nodes and there are places you can go to get like what's going on in the tech meetup space, what's going on in the nonprofit space. And you could at least have access to calendars of meetups and events and fundraisers and so on. So calendars, federation, decentralizing, right? So when everything is hanging on LinkedIn, LinkedIn controls your contact list and who can send messages to whom and who's reading what based on tags and hashtags and tagging people, mentions, I guess. When that is too centralized, you lose some agency. So now if I want to make an announcement about the International Space Apps Challenge, if I make it only on LinkedIn and the wrong people see it, and if people are, let's be honest, if they're lazy and they don't take a ball that seems interesting and run with it, I will reshare this or I will engage with this content. It will end with a sort of first contact with anyone you did tag. If you didn't tag anybody, even worse. So people who might be genuinely interested in things that you are working on may never see them because you failed to satisfy the requirements of an algorithm that you have no control or visibility over into. And so you are wasting time. And people are missing out. They're missing out on seeing what you have to say or what you are working on or what your company is working on because you don't have the right hashtags on your post, on this awful platform. So are you getting the sense that I'm not a fan of LinkedIn? So the history has shown us, even Google and Bing, they slap ads on search result pages, search engine result pages, or SERP, right? And they slap ads on other things, and so it's in their interest to have advertising placed on things that people will read, so they drive content that satisfies those metrics for profitability. So are you getting the best search results from Google anymore? Is Bing with the Chat GPT integration going to give you even more better ads? I'm sorry, better search results, better ads. That's what I meant. Yeah, so the algorithms and profit drive are, in my opinion, but probably provably, impacting how we are accessing and being exposed to different pieces of information, even if we are proactively interested in it. And I think this affects the ability for us to communicate with our peers and with our colleagues and with our communities about important things. So my proposal is we have our Smart Social project with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. It will be integrating into what used to be the My Local project, now the My Muni project. We're inviting people from outside of Nevada to participate in a community sort of social networking / media platform. The days of print media publishing in digital form have probably been coming to an end for decades. Will they ever? Probably not. But there's just simply too much in the way of tools and technologies. There's too much mapping and timeline and data analysis. And obviously the city of Las Vegas has its open data sets that can find their way into news reporting. News reporting with the inverted pyramid is, again, based on print media. We live in an era now where you can follow a news story by following a single URL that updates its timeline continuously, rather than finding a single article or a collection of articles. You find an ongoing story, an ongoing following, with links to the actors and the facts in the case. And when facts become, when they change, when they become unconfirmed or so on, you can update specific elements rather than having to find, much like city ordinances, find not only the original, but also find the updates over time and find out which things were true and which were found to be not as true as the story evolves and so on. So these are all things that can be done using modern methods to keep people informed. But at the same time, and where we will probably begin, is focusing in our greater Vegas ecosystem on entrepreneurialism and innovation, which are so often left off the table when there are so many more exciting things, like which stadium will impinge on traffic flow and which horrible baseball team will reside within it. What shiny metal object is being constructed on the strip, and how will it impact traffic ongoing, and how is the Formula One strip paving impacting traffic in the short term, and who has been murdered and which catalytic converters have been stolen, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of stuff that makes headlines in the greater Vegas area. And especially if you are in the we're going to be the next Silicon Valley camp, people don't really talk about that outside of insular communities, so that the world, and I know this from 10 years ago, so it's old information, but the world does not view Silicon Valley and Las Vegas as, interchangeable. When I would travel, especially to hackathons or to tech centers, Intel in Ireland, the Arduino offices in Turin, the Maker Faire in Rome, Intel offices in Toulouse, France, various hackathon events at universities around the US and co-work spaces. These are not the casual person walking on the street. These are people in the mindset of innovation, hackathons, technology, ideation. Not everything is tech, by the way. So for these people to automatically assume that Las Vegas is a mecca of gaming and debauchery, it should not be outlandish. In fact, that has been the primary marketing marketing message coming from Vegas, and it's the motivation for many people to come to Vegas. So leaning away from that and supposing that we are going to be something different, I think, is an error. But at the bottom line, we should be promoting people doing what they're doing and not leave them out completely. And I think our local media essentially fails in that regard. So our upcoming goal is to have a platform that will focus initially and primarily on innovation and entrepreneurialism and our ecosystem of the greater Vegas, or you could say Southern Nevada region, on things that are not so often covered by traditional media. Not to say they're not covered at all, but they don't receive the attention. And this is, hey, so-and-so is starting a new business doing this. Where does that person go to make a press release that people actually see? They could do it on LinkedIn. Got to tag a lot of people. What if you don't tag the right ones? No one will see it. So just a way to connect people off the beaten path with the rest of the population. And, 2.5-ish million people in Southern Nevada, 40 million people visiting each year, according to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority numbers from about a month ago. We can do better at exposing what people are working on here to the world while people are here to gamble, watch sports, see shows, gamble some more, go shopping, and then head to the airport and leave. I blame it all on LinkedIn. Anyway, yeah, LinkedIn needs to have its place in the pipeline of communication. I believe it has to be way down on the list. I think we should take back our individual and group communications so that we know who we're talking to and that they will see what we have to say. And whether that's more of a personal brand ownership, own your brand, own your platform, self-publish. If it's using federated and decentralized tools, if it's avoiding algorithms, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of tools in the toolbox that people can use. I'm not going to say it's laziness, but in this fast-paced world, in a world where everybody has social media, who knows which one's better? So how do we get people to take back their brand, their online presence, their consumption decisions, what they're able to read, what they're being allowed to see? And I'm not talking about censorship. I'm just talking about algorithms that favor engagement and thus advertising clicks and so on over your agenda, right? If my agenda is to make money and you're publishing on my platform, if your posts don't make money, I'm not going to fill my newsfeed that I publish to the rest of the people with your content. It's just not interesting enough. Sorry. So the motivations are diametrically opposed often. And it's something I think if we're going to be a smarter smart city, and if we are truly innovative, we can be truly innovative in how we communicate and share that information, not only amongst ourselves and between insular communities. I'm not saying isolated, I'm saying insular. But if we can do that, and if we can do the same with the rest of the world, then Vegas will add to its list of reasons to come here. Don't try to replace it. I think that's a bad idea. But make innovation and entrepreneurialism another reason to come to Vegas. So while you're gambling, you could, I didn't even know there was a company here starting a new kind of gym that I get a 15-minute workout. That's amazing. What is Blackfire? I have no idea what that is. I'm here to gamble, and can I just do it in the resort? Yeah. So they're making that connection. People don't even know to ask those questions. So I think it's something we can tackle. And because we have 40 million people visiting each year, there's no reason to break that. And there's also no reason to not enable those people to find out more about what we're doing here. So there you go. Down with LinkedIn. I will continue to say that, although I will not be direct messaging it anymore. If you're listening to this and you want to contact me, just send me email, dhugo@cafegenius.org. Visit our website for innovateforvegas.org if you're interested in those activities. spaceappschallenge.org if you're interested in participating in the Space Apps Challenge on 7 and 8 October 2023. Obviously, if it's after October and you're listening to this, don't do that, but do it for 2024. And there you go. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening, and happy Friday if you're listening today. Happy Friday on any Friday, or any day, in fact. Be sure and like and subscribe on your favorite social media platform. I'm just kidding. Just listen if you like, and share it with your friends if you want, and send me email if you want, or don't. and I'll try to email you back. Thanks for listening.